这什么？这是手是吧？哦，这延伸过去的。Oh my god！ 太奇异了吧！我靠，这个鲸鱼看起来好吓人啊！这是鲸鱼没错吧？这个毛好顺啊，看起来。大家好，我是胡尔大。我们今天玩的游戏呢有点特殊。那这个游戏的形式呢，其实就是看纪录片。那这个纪录片呢是一种伪纪录片，主要讲就是我们要看鲸鱼在外星海洋里头是如何生存下来的。那整个游戏给的这个世界观呢，都是作者虚构的，非常的有意思啊，是外星世界观。里面还有各种外星的这种生物啊。然后包括这个鲸鱼，它后面会遇到一些危险啊。那这里我是后期完整部影片，然后再过来录这个开头的。如果大家有耐心能看下去的话，我会保证啊，这个世界观会震撼的。那游戏现在是第一部啊，只讲这个鲸鱼的故事啊，可能以后第二部会讲一些其他动物的故事。总之这部是完整的，然后原版的没有汉化，汉化用的是民间汉化，但质量还是蛮不错的。那么视频看完喜欢的话，希望可以点赞、助影片，真的很重要。那么拜托过来，咱们开始游戏吧。古雕南岛是一部线性的阅读作品。但其中存在部分偏离主题的信息呢，也可以探索。也就是说，我们可以去点啊不同颜色的文本啊，可以去看一下那个信息。这边是写的，这边都是杜撰的啊，虚构的。好的，开始吧。这一开始就很有这种纪录片的感觉啊。哦。开始了，节目开始了。
Corporation for Earth Media is proud to present this educational program. Produced in conjunction with the frontier scientists, engineers, and artists of the Kronos 7 expedition. South Scrimshaw is made possible through the support of viewers like you. Thank you.
第一章诞生。
Hot sunlight shines through the veined membrane of an aquatic egg. It was once carried in deeper, cooler waters of a more northern latitude. Now it bobs freely in a subtropical shallow. The consciousness dawning inside is prodded alert in discomfort.
这个眼睛应该是鲸鱼的眼睛吧？小鲸鱼。
It is a male whale calf, stirring with a newfound awareness of body. This pod has held him for 17 months, nurtured his development from a single fertilized cell. Now it can no longer support his life. The inflow of nutrients and oxygenated blood has ceased. A once comfortable cradle now pinches at his enlarged form. Pushed onto his own faculty, a suffocating urge to thrash wells up inside him. Yet he hesitates. A song booms from the world outside.
哎呦，这是鲸鱼妈妈的声音吧？应该是要把这个小鲸鱼生下来了。
The powerful low frequency vibrates through his whole body.
我不知道为什么我深海恐惧有点来了呢。
The calf knows who is calling. It is his mother.
果然是他妈妈嘛。
She is on the other side. He must join her. The shell containing him is now only a brittle husk, swollen with waste material and straining at the seams. Clumsy first movements form the start of the calf's motor awareness. The egg is evolved to rupture open along a central seam. A few thin cartilage bands are all that retain him. One more forceful effort and he will escape.
哦，又生出来了。哦，好有这个味道啊，纪录片的味道。
Technically speaking, the whale didn't hatch from an egg. Egg is something of a misnomer. While there are known egg-laying mammals, none of them are whales.
我们这里就可以点这样的文本啊，就看更多的相关的信息。
There are 4 extant species of egg-laying mammal. They are the platypus, the echidna, the snorb, and the ribbon snore.
这个真的有这种生物吗？这个可能是作者杜撰的那种虚构生物吧。
This whale species has a placental connection to the mother while developing. Birthing shell is the term currently favored in scientific journals when discussing this style of external womb. The outer cartilage folds backwards, shrinking the space inside and expelling the contents outwards, creating pressure against the inner membrane until it finally...
哦呦
The calf spills out into the open ocean.
我还以为刚才旁边那都是鲸鱼呢，原来这个才是鲸鱼呀，好大！我还说怎么鲸鱼这么多。
The world is a rush of sensory stimulation. The newborn is momentarily stunned limp.
小鲸鱼的诞生。
He comes to amid a dizzying flurry of life. Plants and protists tangle and snag his every movement.
都是海洋的生物啊。
eagerly devour the cloud of waste. Plants unfurl and retract in almost animalistic locomotion. Foliage clings to the calf from above. He swims deeper to escape. His mother's song reassures him once again, but she is...
我现在还没有看到鲸妈妈哎，鲸妈妈是不是超级大呀？
Sponges, wharf biters, crustaceans and corals dangle from the plants like ornaments.
这个植物有科普啊，我们点一下。
Plant is not a misnomer. These are true plants. As with so much else in biology, the origin of plants can be traced back to the water. Albeit those early ancestors were far less complex than what we see today. As will be explained later, marine environments impose steep challenges on plants. It was once upon land freed from the burdens of an aquatic life. And it was also after that great proliferation of flowering species
这个植物长得好奇特呀。
by the water, and eventually they are, in that sense, like whales.
我在想，这个游戏里的植物和动物可能都是，毕竟作者也说了嘛，它不是地球，是在外星，所以很多东西和咱们常识中是不太一样的。
Something solid grabs from below. His descent is halted. He's being lifted back towards the surface. The calf breaches, filling his lungs with their first breath of air. This is the breeding ground of his species. At the year's peak, this wide expanse fills with whales.
每年的高峰，这边广阔的水域都将是鲸鱼。
But today our calf finds the surface
对啊，
empty.
啥都没有啊。耶！
Except for a very odd clump of plants. The calf does not know what to make of it.
我在想，这个不会就是鲸鱼妈妈吧？只不过它身上全是这种植物。
Equally disturbed and compelled, he stares.
咦，这为什么上面长了蘑菇啊？你看到没有？
Plants continue to tickle his body just below the water. A resident water bug examines him with equal skepticism.
水虫是右上角的这个吗？ 上面还有鸟，甚至。
Atop the leafy mass catches his eye.
啊？这啥呀？哇！
It's all too frightening for the little one.
对我来说，我也觉得挺可怕的。
He retreats back under the surface.
因为毕竟好像也不是地球上的生物，我都在想都是什么东西啊？
His overpowering
看了有
instinct
点
is to
诡异了。
nurse, but he cannot.
小鲸鱼想要吃奶。
His exhaustion mounts and fear seizes him. He is lost.
他好害怕呀。
And as if sensing his weakness, tendrils begin to grasp at him. A vine lassos his flute. There is no escape.
藤蔓居能抓住他。这星球的植物好吓人吧？
The calf fights, thrashing, tearing, and uprooting his attackers. A scent of blood enters the water. His mother cries a pained song to soothe him. The calf is hit with the sudden realization. The strange plants are not taking him away from his mother. The strange plant clod.
我就知道这是他妈妈，上面被寄生了各种植物，什么生物都有。Holy shit！ 巨行鲸给小鲸鱼吓坏了。第2章，生理结构。
What evidence remained of this year's Brillo breeding season has long since been swept away. This sandbar has returned to its normal, pristine state, save for one unusual pile of rocks.
这有啥不寻常的呀？哇，还可以扫描，这么高科技！嘿，这里有个生物。
This is a stone dog.
石狗是吧？
Like a hermit crab, this animal lives in a portable shelter of foreign material. It grasps together a shell of scavenged of debris with its long limbs and secretes an adhesive mucus to hold it fast.
挺有趣的呀，这怎么说就像蜗牛、
Stone
寄居
dogs
蟹差不
mostly
多
rely
啊。
on ambushing prey from a camouflaged position. Right now, this stone dog here is not the hunter, but the hunted.
既然是猎物，
It is a woefully
那
obvious
谁是
attempt
猎
to
人？
hide. As the predator stalking it possesses one of the sharpest minds in the ocean.
不会就是我们吧？哦，自己能看到这个石狗的眼睛啊。他看了一眼，安不安全？
It isn't.
这是我们，果然是小鲸鱼。 缩
A
起来。
whale calf wants to play, not eat. But from the stone dog's perspective, there's little difference.
确实，小鲸鱼只想玩一玩。跑了！
Since hatching, our calf has been a healthy and energetic specimen. Despite his late birth, no complications are detectable. If anything, his cognitive
所以我们很
ability
健康啊，
is
这个小
showing
鲸鱼。
swift advancement. He is very fond of holding his fluke above the water surface. Scattered showers are currently moving through the area. The calf has been emerging frequently for visual inspection since the rain began. He seems very interested in the weather above. A long call reminds him not to stray too far.
这是他妈妈叫他不要走太远。
Brillos have surprisingly keen vision above the water. The calf is quickly able to spot his mother. This is the farthest distance he has travelled from her. It is more than twice that of yesterday. Today was quite an adventure.
有种小时候看
Now, reminded of his
人与
mother,
自然的感觉了。
all this bravery seems to evaporate. He is suddenly anxious to be at her side. He will bring her any interesting objects discovered while exploring.
石狗跑哪儿去了？跑到妈妈身上去了。
And boot it at her face. His mother is trying to rest off another bout of nausea. This play is a bit much.
确实好皮呀、他是嫌妈妈身上不够沉吗？
But these discomforts are trivial to the bond between mother and child. Our neural interface even shows a measurable relief in her symptoms during these interactions. The calf's carefree play is training for future hunts and the essential skills of survival. But it will be some time before he has to worry about earning meals on his own.
现在还什么都不用想，在那玩就行了。
His mother's long, prehensile udders reach him through the thorny bramble. The milky nurses on is thick as yogurt.
找个奶吃真不容易。
Calves subsist on this fat-rich diet for 2 years, building up an insulating layer of blubber, and the bands of spongy tissue for other organisms to burrow into. here we arrive at what truly makes a Brillo whale such a remarkable specimen for study. Symbiosis of unrivaled complexity and variety. This female was initially selected for study due to her exquisitely beautiful exterior. The mammal is almost totally concealed within the undulating botanical mass.
我觉得应该在它身上都很痛苦吧，这些植物啊，比如说还有一些鸟啊，对吧？你看这个石狗也能扔上去，它身上有很多东西，那可能很痛，很累。
The distinction between whale and passenger is more visible.
啊，也有可能是共生。哦，这是扫描了一下，能看它里面这个样子。
Unlike the stone dog shown earlier, this is not simply an external attachment to foreign material. The Brillo whale has an intimate connection to thousands of other living creatures.
那应该就是一种共生吧？你看它外面那一层就是给那些植物扎根的嘛。
The whale chooses from among a variety of partner species and offers real estate within designated regions of its body. An inner membrane draws the line between the welcome cohabitation space and the whale's vitals.
对嘛，对嘛，对嘛，要隔开了，要不然就出事儿了。
This unusual arrangement raises several questions, the first of which we will address. What is the benefit of living on a whale?
讲讲吧，我也挺好奇的，为什么一定要共生呢？
To help us illustrate the principle, we will be assisted by a sea bunny, or sea bun, to use its more common nickname.
我们点一下这个海兔啊。
The South Scrimshaw team has received very explicit direction from our producers, and we are that the sea bun is not a real animal.
并非是一种真实的动物。
The sea bun owes its creation to the original landing party of Kronos 5. Though the specifics are lost, the most convincing story is that it was something misheard over a shoddy radio connection. As those early years recede into contemporary legend, it is important to remember that the tales of hardship told the pioneers were indeed isolated for 11 solar cycles. And it was not until the conclusion of the hostilities on Earth the uncharted planet was a land of mysterious fauna and unknown. It was a time where technology seemed to suffer inexplicable malfunctions, while the efforts were always undermined by a constant lack of material. The myth of the sea bun serves as caricature of the force always at work.
对工作的讽刺。
Sea bunnies was a sort of shorthand for I don't know what's wrong, it could be anything, including a cryptid. Among our seniors who were present at the time, one likened the expression to "here be dragons" on medieval maps. Somewhere along the line, either as intentional jokes or honest misunderstanding of colourful communiques, word of sea compounding this popular hazing ritual where new arrivals were assigned to catch a sea bun for research, usually being given a butterfly net and sent somewhere isolated and moderately dangerous.
这个海兔就是一种传说，还代表很多意思。
A unique culture planetside encouraged the escalation of this practice, until a few near disasters brought a legislated end to the budding tradition. Regular infrastructure improvements have also blunted the disgruntled sarcasm towards occasional hardship. In recent years, the sea bunny is most defined by Will Voynich's cartoons.
这个还可以点。
Kids Wilderness is a monthly publication created and edited by Will Voynich, using friendly illustrations.
啊，就这个人
natural science, camping,
专门画插图的是
and
吧
health and wellness. Voynich was originally a cartographer and among those first to land with Kronos 5. Children's literature only became a guiding passion after he discovered himself a soon-to-be father, and realised how very little would be available for the new generation by way of age-appropriate entertainment and education. On off hours at the Cartographic Survey Computer Lab, using optical 5 volumes containing every fable he could remember from his own childhood.
这好像是一个狼在吃葡萄吧？
While he faithfully retells many of these timeless classics, Voynich's recall is often hazy. Several of the stories are so misremembered, they are more original work than adaptations. For
大象
example, the elephant
和老
and
鼠
the mouse retains nothing from the Aesop tale besides the titular animals. Voynich's version has the two discussing the different sorts of dreams they have while sleeping. Voynich's first intentional works of fiction would be penned for kids' wilderness. The Adventures of Seabun and Monaco.
啊，这里有海兔了。海兔与莫纳克的大冒险第4集。这里称这个海兔以前是传说的存在，然后这个作者给它具象化了，然后变成了卡通形象。
Musical arrangements from the puppet show adaptation, which has been touring schoolhouses. The formula of each adventure largely follows the same beats. Seabun, an ocean sprite with impish curiosity and an endless appetite for inedible material, happens and decides to devour it. Meanwhile, Monaco, a nervous eel sidekick who always follows
原来是鳗鱼，我还想是什么鱼呢？
comically exaggerated terror while imagining the most nightmarish possible outcomes. These predictions of doom never come to pass. But Seabun's actions do cause significant damage, forcing construction crews to deploy for repairs. Seabun, now realizing his error, uses his supernatural strength to help workers in various ways and atones for his destructive acts. The story formula seeks to inform young readers about vital infrastructure. It also seeks to make the harsh edges of a frontier life less frightening and unknown to young readers. Each story ends with the sleepy Seabun returning to his burrow with a souvenir, that is, until he gets hungry again.
好，继续看
Given how entrenched the character has become in the popular consciousness here,
反正都是纪录片嘛，他科普的咱们就都看一看，都是这个作者算他虚构的这种世界观嘛，蛮有意思的。好，那么回来了，我们继续看啊。
While each species has its own unique adaptation to this niche lifestyle, we can create several broad categories of benefits such evolution aims to harness. Moving through water takes energy. It is far easier to travel great distance when someone else is doing the swimming. Simply hitching a ride can be greatly beneficial.
指的是那些在鲸鱼身上的植物啊、动物啊，它们的好处。
only lives on brillo whales every other generation and uses whale transportation to greatly expand its range. Unless one is the apex predator, the threat of being eaten is an ever-present reality. If one lives as a potential meal, it is very important to be the least desirable, most difficult of meals. Finding alliance with a giant beast and living under its protection creates a very effective deterrence. It's always still possible to be eaten, but hunters now risk facing off with a leviathan.
在鲸鱼身上的好处还真挺多的。
Some partnerships are more proactive. Certain shark, skates, rays and scarps have formed hunting partnership with the brillos. They help find and catch quarry, then share in the feast. Pack hunting allows the brillo to take down the blood or waste of brillo whales can also provide a source of nourishment. This not offered freely. Obviously, a brillo whale cannot stand to be eaten.
所以我这里真的比较好奇的是，这个鲸鱼的好处是什么呀？
An Earth parallel is an oxpecker bird on a rhinoceros. The bird may drink a marginal amount of blood while it cleans off ticks. It's a fair trade for the rhinoceros, as the tick is the far greater threat. So too, will a brillo whale expend blood in a beneficial relationship? In several instances, living on a brillo has evolved into part of an organism's life cycle, and the specific conditions regulated in a brillo's body are required for a new generation.
都成一种生态环境
In
了。
some cases, this goes even further.
不是，怎么变成这个样子了？
She's becoming so enmeshed it is unclear where one ends and the other begins.
这个好掉散啊，刻起来了。
But these instances are rare. Our research team is very interested if these extreme cases represent a functioning system, or the pathological eventuality to such complicated arrangements. All of these riders taking in small amounts adds up to a great expense for the host. This prompts the obvious next question.
所以
What does the whale stand
对，我就想知道这个。
to This is more complicated to respond to. There seems to be as many answers as there are brillo whales, as there is
每个鲸鱼还有自己的答案。
spectacular variety among brillos. For now, let us approach the answer with specific examples from this mother. The most prominent feature along her body is the wide variety of photosynthesizing organisms. The whale is, of course, not an autotroph producing her own energy from sunlight, but the specialized sea flora pays rent by sharing some of their sugars into her blood. When light is low, roots ferment, and alcohol is also created as a byproduct. Certain plants near her head also act as fishing lures, drawing food to her maw.
就让它食物来的也很方便是吧？
While she may occasionally swim deeper, a partially plant-subsidized life has locked her within the photic zone, the upper aquatic layer where enough sunlight can sustain the leaves. Adult brillo behavior and biology is often dramatically influenced by their symbiotic arrangement.
我可以点
Here
吗
we see a blood trilobite.
吸血三叶虫
This is not an invited guest. A long needle-like proboscis pushes down and taps a vein.
这是吸血
Drinking in great volume and offering nothing in return.
这个是确实没有什么好处的虫子
This is a job for the vellum worm.
但是我们因为身上是有个算是生态系统吧，我们有保护这个环境的人虫子
Vellum worms fill their stomachs by grooming brillos of unwanted visitors. It is currently hypothesized that vellum worms distinguish the welcome from the attackers through smell and taste. Parasites have all been found to have elevated amounts of a bile-like brillo waste inside them. This mother brillo also has to worry about creatures browsing her lovely plants. Herbivorous fish attempt frequent raids on the leafy goods. This one is alone and quite oblivious. The vellum worm packs a powerful punch.
牛皮虫好牛皮啊管得好宽
into the fish's heart. It can only manage a faint muscle spasm before the venom completes its work.
太屌了
The brillo whale strategy is called a symbiotic
共生花园
It is an intentionally cultivated arrangement and a precarious balance of mutual reliance. When successfully maintained, the host becomes a morass of life. It is usually defended from attack. It can sometimes acquire energy in novel ways, and occasionally it is able to invade new niche ecosystems.
但不太好说的一点是什么？它身上这个生态环境看起来还是不是那么太稳定。
The universal downside experienced by all brillos is that more complexity creates more points for failure. An adult brillo's life is dominated by the struggle to groom a semblance of order into increasingly overgrown flanks. To a simple calf, these adult problems have yet to enter
那
his
这小金鱼现在还没什么事儿。
Today he has found his mother's leaves serve as fun streamers to play with. She finally scolds him.
斥责他
She is too unwell to tolerate any more roughhousing. He doesn't quite understand, but he has other diversions.
他还是个孩子，他什么都不懂。
Primarily drinking more of her milk. Given the complexity of brillo anatomy, even small health problems can swiftly spiral out of control. This female experienced complications while giving birth. There is the potential for the situation to worsen. A thorned branch has become ingrown, puncturing through both the layer of protective outer muscle and the cuticle barrier. This had begun prior to calving, but her contractions to extend the womb also caused the plant shard to stab deeper.
你看这不就受伤了吗？
The spikes are
大
now
根
in
扎太
contact with
深
her
了，
intestines.
它这
Fortunately,
个
there is no
生态
puncture
环
yet.
境还是
The
不太
site is
稳定啊，感
inflamed
觉。
and white blood cells flood the area. The immune system unmistakably identifies this as an injury. We can witness her stiff reluctance to move and read a jolt in brain activity when she's jostled. It must be greatly painful. The greatest danger right now is a tear of the intestines, which would certainly be fatal. There is reason to hope. Our scans also reveal that she has recovered from a similar injury in the past. Perhaps brillos regularly endure such ghastly wounds.
需要经常忍受这类可怖的伤口，
Perhaps it
那
was
感
the
觉上都
safety
好
of the
痛苦
brillo
啊。
herd
它这个
which
环境给它
afforded
带来的
her
好
enough
处也不太
time to
多。
convalesce. Certainly her odds of survival will be boosted greatly if she is able to make the long
它
swim.
就只能自己愈合嘛。
For now, she is still well enough to care for her newborn, though doing so must be
你看这
exhausting.
眼神就很累呀、
Judging by several physical indicators, this is most likely her first calf. Those brillows who manage their gardens well can be extremely long-lived. Females can give birth as many as 8 times. If the calf survives, one day he too might also cast his genes forward, his own minute fingerprint on the future's shape. Regardless of whatever metric of success we observers of an outside species might apply, his life will be led by the means it was forged, in the crucible of natural selection.
因为我在想，它这个共生系统吧，并不是利大于弊的。因为我们讲道理嘛，地球上的鲸鱼不需要共生，它自己活得不也挺好的吗？那它在这个外星的海洋里头就没办法了，就一定会变成这种共生系统了。
But for now, a rare moment of shelter.
只是说就是这么一种生物吧，它就是这样的一种存在，就和地球上的也不太一样。外星鲸鱼，第3章。启程，看来我们小鲸鱼是不是长大了呀？
This is a simplified map of the local ocean topography. The deep blue represents a fault line, the planetary scar where 2 tectonic plates meet. As with Earth, this land is a moving crust atop a globe of molten metal. The planet-shaping force of subduction pushed ground up above the sea, creating what is now named the Chartreuse Archipelago. The island chain runs for about 870 kilometers, drawing a ragged line away from the continent.
难不成这个鲸鱼要上岛啊？突然介绍这个岛干嘛？
These names were given by an early survey team assessing the grounds for a harbor or research outpost. The body of water created between the Scrimshaw Islands is known as the Thalo Bay. The large inlet is exactly what a brillo whale breeding ground requires.
巨航鲸的繁殖场所，看一下。
Regarding brillo carving, the most important feature of the bay is the chemical composition and concentration of fungal spores. For now, we will limit our discussion to the choreography of the breeding ground. 3 separate herds converged this year to give birth simultaneously. The dots estimate their prior positions. Not all brillos make this trek every year, but many more whales assist besides parents. Pregnant whales move into the center,
到这个圈的中
as
间
much
嘛。
distance from one another as possible. Perhaps due to the unpredictable anatomy of their fellow brillos, or a vulnerability in the skin of the newborns, calves are kept segregated from all others for the first months of their life. The remaining herd forms a blockade at the mouth of the bay, while the pregnant whales deliver. As weeks pass, hunger and distraction start to erode focus on this task. The amount of time that the herd can wait is finite. When the time comes, all leave together at once, moving with the safety of numbers. Their destination will be one of several coral reefs. Those unable to move on time must be abandoned. The healthy cannot hazard everyone's odds of survival for the sake of a few infirm.
这个就是自然规律
Our
了。
mother, wounded as she is one of several
该
this
淘汰
year
就
who
淘汰
befell
了。
this fate.
啊，对哈，那个母鲸它确实是受伤了呀。
Outside of that season, the whales live elsewhere. Usually, they are found at coral reefs and areas more productive with food. Brillos require a very high-calorie diet. We now find our whales here, at the border to the Great Vathis Ocean.
啊，就这一个点儿。
It is a bright day in early autumn. An unseasonable cold front chills the air. Below the surface, we find our mother, bracing for the journey. Judging by her mobility, her health has much improved.
啊，还恢复了一点健康，
Is
那还挺
likely
好
not。related to her recovering wounds.
扔位出发的原因和他的伤口没有关系。
Distance between
那
the
为啥呀？
Thalo Bay and the southern reef is inhabited by many
哦
large predators.
这边有很多掠食
Many
者。
brillo. Her loud songs are searching for another brillo's response. She has been making these calls since before dawn.
那咋整
She does
啊
not want to make this journey alone.
但是刚才我们也看到，他只有他一个点儿，没有同伴啊。
The calf returns with a fresh lungful of oxygen.
就这母子俩，
and quickly retreats back to the bramble under his mother. For once, he does not need to be told to stay close. Undoubtedly, he can also read the change in his mother's behavior.
孩子也意识到了。
And the unfamiliar place ahead is deeper and colder. Faintly at first, a new sound reaches them.
啊，有新的声音传到他们身边了。
His mother startles. They both listen. It's another whale.
居然
A Brillo whale, and it is getting nearer. Our mother booms a reply back.
有同伴了，好事啊。
The calf's curious nature starts to show itself again. He has yet to meet a Brillo besides his
确
mother.
实还没有见过。
There. He spots something. A large body begins to emerge from the hazy distance.
这个另一个巨航鲸会和我们这个母亲长得一样吗？
It continues to approach, but the calf still can't quite understand what he's looking at.
等一下，我觉得是不是？我觉得可能不是巨航鲸，是不是掠食者伪装的呀？
The calf's curiosity morphs into
我觉得不对劲
discomfort
儿
the
了，
closer it gets.
跟这个描写不对劲儿。
Discomfort turns into outright alarm. He pleads to his mother in distress. She rebukes him in reply as if to say, "Don't be rude to the new neighbors." One cannot blame him for his confusion.
我靠！
This Brillo whale's appearance was shaped to be deceptive.
我靠！我毛骨悚然起来。What the
It is a beautiful
fuck?
and ghastly example of mimicry. The way the jaws gently undulate is startlingly believable. The grim exterior is the work of an important symbiotic partner.
哇，
Evelobe.
是叶虫，长得身材有点可爱。
These prodigious builders turn their colonies into terrifying scarecrows by spinning and sculpting ossamer.
所以它这个确实是一个巨航鲸，没错吧？只不过它共生的这个东西不太一样。它都会诞生这个什么东西啊？看看。
Ossamer is a long-chain polymer found in great abundance here. It is totally novel to our researchers. When soft, it is similar in texture to a neoprene diving suit. Through a curing process, it can be hardened to various levels.
我可以理解成是护甲。
In its stiffest state, it resembles the chitin shell of a beetle. A second documentary team is currently compiling all of the latest discoveries.
还有另一个研究团体，我点一下。
Building bugs.
构建昆虫。
This multi-part series will focus exclusively on the insect world, which sees far more divergent evolution from Earth species than vertebrates.
哦，这也算是这个作者对于这个系列的怎么说新作的预告吧？可能如果有下一部的话，就讲昆虫的，对吧？
The title refers both to insects that build habitats and the evolutionary forces which likely constructed such.
我也只是猜猜啊，反正就是有另一个研究团队嘛，他研究这些东西的，有意思啊。
Until then, we hope our simple introduction to this material suffices.
Water is channeled through the layered construction, swelling and emptying various pockets, creating animal-like locomotion. Our resident Weaverlobe expert insists that the beastly facade before us here should have taken many decades to complete.
几十年才能完成这样的一个外表，太壮观了。
It also
掉
seems
散。
unlikely that it was built from scratch on the whale's back. Perhaps if Weaverlobes are able to relocate such structures, an established colony was simply carried on to the Brillo's back. Such a fearsome appearance does much to ward off predators. The reversed head may also help to confuse.
你们看到了吗？这个鲸鱼的眼睛在哪儿？在这里，在我鼠标这个位置。不要以为它的头是在这边，这个伪装太吓人了。我感觉一般的那个掠食者也不会来找这样的茬啊。
We do not know why she was left behind, but this Brillo is a valuable addition to the ocean crossing.
哟，它底下也有一个啊。
She too is a mother, looking to deliver her child to safety.
有点暖心啊。
It seems that all Brillo calves are quite shy around new acquaintances. Our calf growls to himself. Scoldings are unlikely to budge his unwelcoming attitude.
哦，他还是保持警戒的。
Nor will the surprise of additional friends. The calf was so distracted by what was in front of him that he failed to notice what was swimming up from behind.
Wait， 后面有什么东西来了
She's something like a faceless stone woman. The exterior is more bizarre than menacing.
这又是个什么啊
It might serve as some kind of armor, but our crew is at a loss to describe it on first sight.
这是第3头巨航鲸吗
Our Brillo mother, this whale may also have some kind of internal injury.
他也受伤了。
She is only able to produce short, abrupt honks instead of complex songs. She is also a mother, regardless of what
大家都是被抛弃的呀。
provides her presence alone will help contribute to a safe crossing. Flanked by these strangers, our calf seems very disturbed. New experiences may be uncomfortable now, but
所以一开始也说了嘛，
understand the Brillo way.
每个巨航鲸它的共生系统可能都不太一样，原因都不太一样，要看它和什么共生了。
His mother jolts him forward with a shove of her branches. It is unlikely that more companions will show up, and there is no time left to delay. All following her lead, the 6 whales head out into the ocean to find their lost herd.
哦，6只啊！啊，6只是没毛病，就3个妈妈嘛，3个妈妈，3个孩子嘛。好壮观，好有意思啊！
The pod is now 57 kilometers from the Great Southern Reef. This is the final leg of their journey, and their path crosses over a wide abyssal trench.
我怎么感觉这边要有一些深海恐惧了呢？
The parent whales set the pace at a rigorous 6 kilometers an hour.
经典防卫
They
队
swim in
形
a。typical defensive formation, though with only 3 adults, it is not possible to fully encircle the youths.
主要还是为了保护孩子。
The trek has been arduous for our little calf, but he has endured it with admirable stoicism. Slowing down is not an option. He is able to sense this himself. Something large has been following the whales.
好家伙，这回是真来掠食者了吧？
It first appeared in the early afternoon and has maintained the same steady distance ever since.
哦，
Hours passed and the mysterious animal failed to approach or make any
好
concerted
怪哦，
moves.
他只是在观察是吗？
The calf's fear of the unknown was slowly overtaken again by interest in his new Brillo companions. The stony-skinned mother whale and her calf now swim to his left flank. This calf was whining earlier, but seems to have calmed. The stony mother's outer surface has slowly morphed shape throughout the day, greatly reducing in size.
它又是什么结构啊？为啥呀？
It is as if the exterior nodules are deflating. What mechanism triggers this change or how they shrink, we do not know.
就是这个鲸鱼外面都是石头，然后还可以缩小。
Overall, she is slightly more streamlined in form than earlier. Perhaps she can intentionally contract her shell for extra mobility. Our calf doesn't know what to make of her either. Below him swim the mimic mother whale and her calf.
下方是伪装者母亲，还有她的幼鲸。
Along with one of our semi-autonomous light drones.
我们的一个半自动照明无人机，看一下。
Since the autonomous side of this
就这个光。
semi-autonomous drone has chosen to enter frame and spoil the shot, this seems an appropriate moment to talk about some of the machines used in South Scrimshaw's
就
production.
说怎么做的这个纪录片啊，挺到位啊。
Almost all of our remote-operated vehicles, ROVs, are surplus from the pacification war. When the self-appointed International Coalition declared Earth's intention to globally adopt the doctrine of resistance due to the brevity of the conflict, limited mostly between Earth factions, and the eventual unconditional capitulation offered.
巴拉巴拉好复杂。
Almost none of these war machines saw deployment. All can agree that
因为战争有了机器，但机器没有用。
invasion or an apocalyptic scenario such as kinetic bombardment was a necessity. Today, these robots represent progress and optimism instead of death and coercion.
啊，现在变成了 AI 给它做了重编程，现在可以用来探索。
Education and discovery. This declassified schematic illustrates just one of the wonderful drones at our disposal.
我这仪器，我觉得作者好牛啊！这都是他想出来的。他让这些东西尽量都变得合理一些。
We thank the Kronos 7 leadership for their continued logistical support of our project.
Swimming upside down is the most uncomfortable spot for a Brillo, and the Mimic Mother refused to take her turn until minutes ago. Her stubbornness may not be entirely unreasonable. While upside down, her disguise as a wide-jawed monster appears to fall apart. The illusion of a toothy beast is currently broken.
哦，他那个伪装者的那个巨黄鲸，他平时都是倒着游的嘛，因为他那个伪装那个头在尾巴那里，那他这个为了保持队形，他就得正着游，他这个怪物伪装就无法维持了。
Our calf gets a reassuring hum from his mother. This always seems to quell his unease. He is safe within her nest of thorns. He must focus on swimming. But it's hard to ignore that ominous thing in the distance. This is a penumbra shark. It is the fastest marine mammal on the planet.
这个星球上最快的海洋生物。 他惹了个最麻烦的是吗
For the penumbra, 6 kilometers an hour is a leisurely pace. It could comfortably stalk the whales days on end.
其实他就跟玩一样，在那里观察着。
An apex hunter, patient with experience, it will preserve all possible energy for an opportune strike.
他们都在等机会。
Very much like a sailfish, penumbra sharks have a large dorsal fin along their back. This is kept until the moment of attack. With several footsteps, it vanishes from sight.
一下就没了。
Panic overtakes the whales, and the defensive formation immediately breaks apart.
哇，这也太脆弱了呀！瞬间崩塌。
Calf looks down. The Mimic Mother has abandoned her post.
啊
Nothing stands between our calf and the open abyss below.
我去！
The fight or flight reaction is as intense as it is instantaneous. A full threat alarm floods from the hypothalamus, shooting through every nerve and chemical pathway. Adrenaline pumps into the blood. The perception of time dilates. Details of the world suddenly stand out with vivid intensity. Even in this low light, 2 rows of white teeth are searingly clear. The calf finds his own fins now move in slow motion too. Seawater suddenly feels solid, suspending him in place.
那跟这个鲨鱼比，可能真是
Trapped in harm's
就
way,
像
he
固
can
体一
only
样。
watch the events unfold until a tremble runs through the thorns surrounding him.
啊，围绕着他的竞技团的阵
The
动。
mother's branches are held under tension
妈妈开始保
and can
护
be
是吧？
released with the force of a catapult.
发射！
She flexes. Cords snap. And in an instant, the calf is swaddled in protective barbs and makeshift spears. The shark senses the change and shifts the attack direction to the stone mother's calf, who is exposed and helpless. Our calf momentarily loses consciousness, but the barbed vines around him act as a net. His mother whisks him away with her.
Holy shit!
As our calf comes to again, he finds an awful scent filling the water.
那我可以这么理解吗？伪装者鲸鱼还有那个石头鲸鱼都完了，
He looks back to see what happened to his travel companion.
就我们逃了，全都是血水。
The sight horrifies. It is the reality of predation from the perspective of the prey. Because of his mother, our calf is the survivor, and not the cautionary example for others to learn from. Less than 20 kilometers remain until the reef and the safety of their Brillo herd. The mimic mother races ahead, leaving the weaker whales to their fate.
还在啊
The stone mother lags behind.
这都还在吗
Her movements are confused. She is still
她的孩子死了
the death of her child.
因为最后那个鲨鱼攻击她的孩子了吗？其他的没事
Our calf struggles to follow.
但还是丢了一个
It
右
is
镜
much harder to swim outside of a larger whale's slipstream. And his mother is falling far behind again. He races back to be by her side. The calf has been running ahead of her sight and then returning. The back and forth seem to coax his mother a little further each time.
是妈妈走不动了是吗
But now her strength has failed.
Oh no.
She cannot even lift her fins in response. Her old wounds were opened by the physical exertion to save her child's life. She will not recover. He whistles the familiar call to play. There is no more response. She has finally slipped from consciousness.
妈妈去世了
She cannot remain with her calf any longer. He continues to press for a reaction. Desperation compounds the grief. At this age, calves are completely dependent on a mother's milk and protection. With nowhere to go, the calf remains at her side. The research team witnesses the mother's final pulses of electrical activity fade and extinguish. There is a long pause. Two researchers start a heated discussion on the ethics of intervention. But before any consensus is reached,
研究团队人说要不要救，但是说又不能人为干涉是吧
the argument is interrupted by a low rumble over the hydrophone. The stone mother never left the area.
石头母亲还在这边
She watches our calf from a distance. A new day begins to dawn over the coral reef. Brillo whales start to stir from slumber. Together, the stone mother and our calf have arrived safely.
最后他俩结伴了吗
Though physically and emotionally depleted, neither has found any sleep. The calf gorges on milk, famished from the previous day's ordeal. This adoption in the wild may be extraordinary to witness happen, but acts of apparent generosity have not been an uncommon sight to anyone
你
following
就是
this
石头妈妈
intensely
收养
social
了
species.
我们这个幽精
The stone mother's exterior appears to now be fully deflated. We can see a more familiar shape underneath. It's the outline of a young female whale, quite small in size for an adult specimen. She has saved our calf from certain death. Perhaps our calf is helping her continue on
互
too.
帮互助的
The young whale finally slumbers. It is good that he takes the moment to recover while he can. He will need the rest. In the morning, he will awaken to an overwhelming new world.
第4章了，这应该是最后一章了吧？这好精彩啊！第4章为什么叫模仿？
The miracle of Brillos is not that other creatures can live inside the whales. This sort of arrangement is not uncommon. You, the viewing audience, have countless residents inside your own body.
什么意思啊？体内也有着无数的居民。
An adult human is composed of approximately 30 trillion cells.
啊
An estimated additional 39 trillion microbial cells, bacteria,
啊，你说
viruses,
啊
and
啊，你要这么说，
fungi
确实
and
那没
in
毛
the
病。
average person's body. Medical science has long understood the importance of the microorganisms within us and the role they play in good health. Interplanetary travel has elevated this research to the forefront of medicine. Alien Martian atmospheres are a soup of microorganisms that Earth-raised animals have never encountered before. To the globe-hopping human, the radical change of biome is first felt in the gut. Known as planetary dysbiosis, arrival sickness, or simply the drags, all off-world-born humans experience an immobilizing nausea soon after entering the new atmosphere. Even with the year-long acclimation program one undergoes in low orbit, the drags cannot be eliminated. Arrival procedure for all travellers includes a period of convalescence at Mercy Star Hospital. Dysbiosis symptoms last anywhere from 14 days to 6 weeks.
我觉得确实也会这么严重。
persisted for over a year.
我想想，我是个北方人，我来南方都好几年了，我现在感觉还是适应不了。更何况他们是他们这种设定。
Her 25-day recovery is documented as routine. In a message to Kronos Earth Branch cadets, RFC Ukichiro warns, "The initial headaches are too intense to get up and go to the bathroom. In the beginning, you'll mostly suffer on a bedpan. When food isn't coming up or out, you're forcing down a prescribed diet heavy in probiotics. I do mean forcing. The doctors require you to eat certain amounts every day, no matter how nauseated it makes you. Don't think that the kind nurses will let you skip meals either. Your spoon or their tube. Only thing you get to decide. The cuisine here is dominated by fermented and preserved foods. You can blame the past shortage of home refrigeration, state of the grid, whatever. Point is, when you inevitably smell yogurt or sauerkraut later, you'll feel violently ill and want to die. Every off-worlder goes through that. You'll get over it. See you soon, rookies."
还说了一句菜鸟。
The miracle of Brillo whales is their ability to pick and choose their occupants.
其实我感觉巨黄鲸那真的蛮有意思的这个物种啊，那上面共生的东西都不太一样呢。
Our whale will now begin this process of selection.
哎，那我们这个幼鲸它会选择什么呢？
Providing a backdrop for the next chapter is another amazing marine animal whose colorful anatomy can construct whole ecosystems.
哦，为下章做背景，介绍另一种奇妙的海洋生物。
Our Earth audience will find it a familiar species. It is the reef-building coral.
珊瑚啊，上面有个虫子，看起来好肉啊，这个虫子。鱼。
A bikini fish gently picks her way along a mountainous path of calcium carbonate exoskeletons. It's her daily prowl for food, and something tasty has her attention. Plump, bite-sized greebles are entrenched in the nooks below.
格瑞普虫。
It'll take her quite a bit of work to pry them out. As the bikini calculates the best approach of attack, her preparations are interrupted. She joins the other fish fleeing for their lives.
来了个啥？
A higher caste of the food chain steals the scene. It's a spotted barnacle claw.
长得好奇特呀！呀，这是什么？
One powerful yank extracts the entire colony hiding below.
这就是格瑞普虫吗？
The host Brillo whale groans with dissatisfaction. This isn't a meal fit for a leviathan. They will continue browsing for something more substantial.
我靠！你看这个什么？这是手是吧？哦，这延伸过去的。Oh my god！
Fold from a safe distance, somewhat perplexed.
太奇异了吧
In the 6 years since we last rejoined him, the Great Reef has not run short of new surprises. From near and far, one can hear the calls of unknown brillos bounding off these cavernous walls. At least he still has someone familiar to rely on. His adoptive mother is usually out of sight, but never too far away. She has changed quite a great deal since we last saw her.
你不要告诉我，这中间这一团就是那个鲸鱼，是那个石头鲸鱼变成这样了吗
Perhaps in response to the Penumbra shark attack, she has undergone a zealous application of eye spots to her figure.
可这还有 PTSD 的。
While not as outwardly apparent, our young whale's body
我们长成这样，变成这个样子了。
His skin layers and immune system have fully developed and are ready
他已经
to host other
准备好
species
作为其他生物的
puberty
宿主了。那要和什么共生啊？
decide what sort of Brillo he will become.
哎呦，好奇特这个设定，这个奇特越看越有意思。
How does a young whale make such a crucial decision? The choices are overwhelming, the combinations are infinite, and mistakes are fatal. One way to ensure future success is to replicate past
这也学他妈妈嘛。
Brillo youths find a welcoming adult and attempt to fashion themselves in their likeness.
就是整的一模一样。
The older whale assists with offerings of seeds, eggs, larvae, and other materials needed to begin the garden. The younger whale remains close for the years after, learning new behavior from the adult.
就怪不得这一章叫做模仿。
Not every option available to a young whale is desirable.
我靠，这个鲸鱼看起来好吓人啊！这是鲸鱼没错吧？
This old-timer is welcoming, but our whale is visibly uncomfortable.
这是没错，这是一个鲸鱼，但是看起来
It isn't hard to
不是
imagine,
太好分辨。
but on the other hand, another young Brillo might happily accept this body plan. What shapes such individual preference? Realistically, there are far too many influences to chart, but from our limited data, there is one factor that stands out. We estimate that half of Brillos choose to replicate their own mothers. Our whale displays this preference towards his biological mother.
有一说一，我突然又看到这位母亲的这种装扮，我又觉得她这个有点漂亮，但是我觉得她这个植物扎根儿那个有点痛苦吧。你看她妈妈其实也是死于那个扎根扎太深了。
These ribbon plants are the same variety she once wore. Our calf returns here every day, but it is no use. This Brillo whale is deceased. Nothing but a cleaned skeleton remains beneath the foliage.
点一下，这有个多余信息给你看一下。
Our optics technician noticed a strange blip
奇怪的信号。
camera modes. Zooming in
咦？
and switching to infrared, show an ordinary thermal image. As expected, the plants are close to the ambient ocean temperature, but after several seconds, the intermittent blinking resumes.
什么意思啊？
This is an older model IR strobe, typically worn attached to the helmet or vest for identification in emergency situations. Upon retrieving the device and referencing the serial number, we can confirm this deceased whale was the first Brillo ever encountered by humans. The story dates back to the early days of outpost Zeta's construction.
哇，还有历史追溯的。
A fishing boat captain ignored an ominous weather forecast and went to sea collecting crab traps. Indeed, the boat was smashed by a wave while returning to harbour. In the aftermath, 2 deckhands were found missing. Lodestar 1, a heavy aerial command ship able to withstand the violent winds, took off from Vajrapani Airport to begin the search. Scanning the roiling wave below, aided by GPS tracker and IR beacons, the two were together and clinging for their lives to some unidentified debris. The airplane circled in the turbulent sky above, tracking the man until a rescue helicopter could arrive. After further storm-related delays, RRH 307 Kingfisher launched, flying low to keep beneath the still from. The following are archive recordings from that day.
307 Kingfisher.
Go.
307 Kingfisher. We've updated your arrival coordinates. Confirm you've received.
Solid copy, Lodestar. Received.
这里好像已经有个鲸鱼的形状了吗？
Briefing said our guys were hiding in a cave. Is there a PIW?
Negative. Survivors are inside some kind of raft. It's the raft that's now moving.
某种筏子上，
Roger.
应该就是鲸鱼吧？
Got eyes on
Altitude. Altitude.
I see him. Gonna bring it close as I can. Our guy won't be swimming far with these waves.
Altitude. Altitude.
Copy that. Almost directly over him. Forward 15 feet. Hold. Holding. Rescue diver's checklist complete. Sending him down. He's in. Video link is live.
Heads up, Kingfisher. A couple big waves are headed your way. About
Copy. I think you'll make it to the raft before the swell hits.
10 seconds.
Almost seems like the raft is moving towards us.
就是鲸鱼嘛。
What the fuck?
你看到了这眼睛这牙，对吧？他们第一次遇到这个巨航鲸。
What's your status, Kingfisher? Respond.
Oh.
Yeah, everyone's all alive for now. If it was gonna eat him, it would have done it already, right? Let's get them in the chopper before we find out. There's another one.
哇，鲸鱼的眼睛在这里，看到吗？在旁边。
Great. Lodestar, any thoughts?
Felix, I don't think there's any protocol for this in the handbook.
Cap, hold steady for a moment. I think they're coming to us. Hey, can we keep him dead? If you want to see Monitor, then you'll have to...
海怪还行。
Divers headed back down. Second rescue in progress.
不过他们这次是第一次遇到这种巨航鲸吗？没有什么概念。
7 Kingfisher, Lodestar is peeling off. Good work down there.
Much obliged, Lodestar. We'll include you in the highlight reel.
Thanks. Hey, and CC that footage to the bio nerds too. I bet they flip.
The bio-nerds, here referring to scientists of Station Zeta Laboratories, soon received copies of this material. They did indeed flip.
确实有意思啊，巨航鲸。
While it is interesting that the guard
这是当时的
can
第一头。
survive on, none of it can be transferred without the living adult to help.
就是这个鲸鱼虽然死了，它上面这个花园还是活着的。那我们可以直接嫁接过来，是吧？能吗？
Our whale must find comfort in the familiar scent and touch. However, time spent on what he cannot have is time wasted. Waiting too long to start a garden could bring other health complications. He will have to move on. Our whale goes on a search for another plant-based Brillo.
啊，所以没有，他又去找其他的植物型的巨航鲸了吗？
For reasons unknown,
我以为他
such
接过来
Brillos
了。
are conspicuously absent this season. It seems as if anything resembling his mother has migrated elsewhere. One single exception is discovered. And he is a spectacular
Wow.
example of aquatic foliage. The
这个
sugar coat
太
is
绿了啊！
beautiful as the late mother's.
这个毛好顺啊，看起来
But not all Brillos are welcoming.
像那种长毛狗。啊，它不友善吗？
Day, he tries to draw the adult into play, and day after day receives the cold shoulder. The adult flatly refuses to acknowledge his existence. This male has tunnel vision on the single purpose of mating. Babysitting is not on the agenda. We watch an attempt to woo a female fail pitifully.
惨烈的失败，有点好笑了。
She is clearly put off by his little sidekick.
能看到对面还有一个鲸鱼，这应该是那个雌鲸。
Tugging roughly on his leaves. Days of pent-up agitation are suddenly unloaded. Our whale is chased off at the
哎，它这个尖角看起来还挺危险的，但如果这个尖角到我们这个小鲸鱼的身上，挺能保护好自己的。我觉得
It may feel like a painful sacrifice, but a plant body is not an option. There's a
不可以啊
of other choices remaining, and one of them will have to do.
咋办呀？
Another morning dawns.
这又是什么虫子啊？
The nocturnal animals have returned to slumber, and the frantic energy of diurnal animals resumes. For our researchers, every day following the whale is a journey into an uncharted wilderness. Only a small fraction of the species here have been recorded. And there is so much inexplicable behavior to document.
其实地球上的海洋我们了解的也不是太多，这更何况这是外星海洋，看起来都好新鲜啊！这干什么？这是打架了吗？这是。
Recent discoveries have centered on the varieties of coral present. The reef itself is now understood to be a multi-layered structure.
这个也可以看啊，看一下这是什么信息。
The Great Southern Reef is a fringing reef.
南部大礁。
The inhabitants can be categorized into 3 zones based on depth.
3个区域。
The unique character of the Southern Reef is owed to the spire coral, which lives across all 3 of these zones.
都有分布。
Spire coral can survive at the lowest depths, where it faces little competition.
耶，变得越来越大喽。
Once fixed to solid ground, spire coral stack atop one another, upwards towards the sunlight that will fuel more productive respiration. Shallow water corals soon find these raised platform and perch themselves upon it. This is not a cooperative relationship. The spire coral is eventually
最终还会窒息而亡啊！
Under accumulated weight, the
太
structural
多了。
integrity is lost, and the spire shatters. Collapse back down to lower depths. Living spire coral can again reemerge.
啊，这样循环啊，这么搞的，
surroundingly.
看懂了。
This constant tossing and turning creates a porous and dynamic landscape, veined with small tunnels and dotted with caves. Thousands of small animals make this subterranean environment their niche.
这是蝌蚪吧？哦，不是蝌蚪，还是巴
For
鱼。
example,
这蝌蚪吗？
saltwater tadpoles spend their
海水蝌蚪。
stages hidden underground
我还寻思怎么会有蝌蚪？
until they can emerge above as a fearsome predator.
不是，你跟我说这是蝌蚪长成这个样子啊？
Relative to their size, that is.
好吧，就往下看啊，有意思。
Progress and knowledge march forward through tireless work, but we often share in our young whale's bewilderment.
呀
What is this?
这又是一个新的共生的那种巨航鲸啊！这共生啥呀？这是？
What is on his head?
我也纳闷呢，总不能是面包吧？
What is going on? We do not know.
他干嘛？
Our whale runs away, and we simply follow. One afternoon, it seems our young whale's persistent searching has been rewarded. A loud song heralds him from the distance. A
又来一个
hunting party returns. Their high spirits.
巨航鲸的狩猎队伍回来了，他们所有人成果颇丰。
The group's leader is calling to our whale. Our youth remains in place.
我们好可怜呀！
Approach. These whales are sophisticated pack
这
hunters.
一看就很强，好不好？
The chowper, a stupid but friendly shark,
尖头鲨鱼有愚蠢
as their own.，
但友善的鲨鱼将巨航鲸接纳为了他们中的一员。其实你看这个鲸鱼长得一个，它那种打扮也挺像鲨鱼。
Silky costume is minimally invasive and provides maximum returns. And it's a plant. This successful symbiosis strategy is limited only by the pack's willingness to share it with others. An open invitation from the leader is a golden opportunity. Something isn't right.
怎么了？
Our whale is fixated on the chowper.
啊，他想起当年
It is a tragedy that our whale seems unable to tolerate sharks of any
追
kind.
捕我们的鲨鱼了，有阴影啊。
Over the weeks, we observe our subject whale becoming
很苦恼，到底要成为什么样的巨航鲸呢？和什么共生呢？
It is critical he suppress unpleasant feelings and adopt a symbiosis plan. A Brillo whale
啊，
cannot
他这里
survive
说
unplanted.
没有进行植入的巨航鲸将无法生存，所以在这个外星海洋就一定要共生。和我们地球那个概念不一样的啊。这种表情
himself failing to integrate, of course.
什么意思？
But the
好好玩。
building internal agitation is not a force that will help him
他
adapt.
比较
better.
烦恼啊，应该是比较烦恼的。
autumn draws to a close. Several new varieties of brillo begin to arrive from colder latitudes. These are mostly hunter archetypes who can live a life less dependent on the reef's concentrated bounty.
狩猎型的鲸鱼看起来好强啊，听起来。
A camouflaged whale waits for prey to swim near.
一只伪装型的鲸鱼正在等待猎物游进。不是这个图我怎么看不明白呢？上面那个是章鱼吗？啊，我们点一下这个伪装型啊。
Active camouflage or
动态
adaptive
伪装
camouflage refers to skin coloration that can rapidly shift to match a changing environment.
我勒个去，这么屌！
These octopus have linked their tentacle nerve endings together, allowing them to network visual information between all
哇，
Color change is omnidirectional.
进化了，这都属于。
The swiftness and precision of these changes exceeds any Earth octopus ability. They are not the only example of animals here possessing very advanced skin chromatophores. Researchers hope to understand why they have evolved in more sophisticated fashion.
哇，真酷啊！这个设定，我们点下地球变体啊，这也有信息可以了解。
While this documentary is restricted to its limited mandate, we believe in good faith that the following question
什么问题呢？无法避免，必须要回答。
be answered. Why would a species on another planet have an Earth counterpart?
对，这不外星吗？
Convergent evolution was the obvious first hypothesis.
啊，都会往这个大方向去进化是吧？
This is the phenomenon where different species can evolve similar features when faced with the same evolutionary pressure.
啊，就还是那个意思，我
For example,
明白，我明白。
we can find similarities in the wings of unrelated flying vertebrates.
看当时给的压力环境是什么了，它就会进化成什么样子。
While this obviously still
但总
holds
体还是一个物
true,
种
it is not the answer
大
to
方
our
向差不
question.
多。
This lizard looks like an Earth chameleon.
啊，
This whale looks like an Earth whale.
确实
Because they
就很
share
像
a
地球的
recent
鲸
common
鱼。
ancestor with Earth animals. The true answer is directed panspermia.
定向泛种学说，再点一下。
It is the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it, so Aristotle advised us. In that high-minded spirit, we can look back at Francis Crick as one of biology's fearless thinkers. He is best known for his work with James Watson, uncovering the structure of DNA more than a century ago. This earned them and Maurice Wilkins the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine in 1962. He was also uncomfortably acknowledged by 20th century colleagues as a proponent of directed panspermia, that a deliberate extraterrestrial origin to life on Earth. While Crick's hypothesis fails to match our current best understanding, his unorthodox thinking landed him closer to the truth than any of his contemporaries could have believed.
就我看不完，它又出来一个可以点的东西，你知道吗？那我再点。
Francis, do you think we were lucky to have solved it? Or
Ah.
was it real brainwork?
录音。
Well, I guess we were certainly lucky, and of course you give the impression you...
他的思考方式嘛，他这个录音啊，采访，就往下看。
Life on Earth originated on Earth. Abiogenesis took place in deep-sea hydrothermal vents approximately 3.7 billion years ago. Recent history has revealed that 3 other planets also sustain life.
就如果都是按照地球的那种啊，就是先有水，水诞生生命的话，那差不多，我觉得进化方向都差不多。
Aria, Gos, and Earth 2
对吧？
are affectionately referred to as sister planets of Earth due to their similarities. But it may be more accurate to call them Earth
地球的子嗣啊。啊
barren until intentionally planted from Earth's high
啊！我明白了，我明白了，是把地球的基因池拿过去了是吧？然后那边的每个星球的环境不太一样，然后就导致它们就有不同变体。
Isolated across light years of space, the forces of evolution then wrought divergent results. Along a different but always familiar timeline, all 3 bloomed into wonderful new cradles of complex life.
这就是为什么这个星球上很多生物你有即视感，但又不是。
ongoing work of planetary curation. But suffice to say, even the professionals struggle to grasp a simplified understanding.
好，继续看。
This kind of strategy requires a good deal of patience.
这个变色是真强啊，我觉得，好帅啊！
Our whale, sensing the hunter, swims wide. politely hails him. Other Brillo whales aren't the target of his trap. Our whale replies with mistrust and leaves. Something is wrong. Our whale's once irrepressible curiosity has grown increasingly muted.
对，我们这个幼鲸长大了，就是他对任何都有警戒了，不是那么随便好奇了。
Even wonders like bioluminescence provokes no reaction. These lamplighter
哇，这个鱼长得也很有趣啊！
annual mating competition.
这个皮是透明的吗？里面能看到这个，这是它的卵还是什么？不知道。
The event is soon.
叫灯火鱼啊。
It's only a one-night affair, and they will all die immediately afterwards.
一夜的狂欢，而后他们将立刻死去，为什么啊？
We think it would be quite the enriching spectacle.
不会是像萤火虫一样吧？发光是为了交配，交配完然后就死了。
But the fish seem to be of no interest. Our research objectives all involve how a planted Brillo changes gene expression throughout its life. An unplanted whale is no use to us.
未植入的基因对我们来说没有用处。
There is a fear that our biometric implants have been invested on a losing whale.
因为我们观察的幼鲸它不去共生，点一下，点一下。
When a gene pool is too small, there is no way for a population to discard deleterious mutations. Without sexual recombination, offspring will have at least as much mutation as their parents. The errors simply accumulate. Muller's ratchet describes a process of irreversible decline, where each generation is one notch less fit than before. Can all the higher intelligence or wisdom of the universe provide salvation if one's very genetic code is winding down to destruction? The Kronos project is a late-hour rewrite of a complex genome. It is an attempt to engineer a viable escape from an extinction vortex.
就是防止一代一代然后往毁灭的方向走嘛。
Humans, still a robust and healthy animal, are conscripted to provide a variety of labour, which our forebearers have grown too enfeebled and small in number to handle themselves. Of course, we do not do this work without our own motivations. The fruits of this labour could change, but that final objective, to fundamentally decouple our fate from natural machinations and assert the reins of technology, is still widely contested. In contrast to other human enclaves, the Constitution of Aria proudly allows this debate to take place in open forums.
But before we can discuss contingency plans, our Brillo finally begins to break bad habits.
哦，还有变化了。
This unknown youth has snagged a lamplighter and presents it now to our whale. Perhaps he was enthused to share his catch and our whale happened to be closest.
灯火鱼吗？右边的是我们这只鲸鱼吗？左边的应该是新遇到的。这上面有个是什么？寄居蟹吗？这是。
Brillo interactions can be opaque, but these two have clearly hit it off. For once, our whale does not withdraw.
哦。
He is proactively engaging instead of passively responding. It's a much welcome scene, but it begs the question, what changed? What external factors could have contributed to a more outgoing posture?
你总不能是我们这个鲸鱼喜欢这个鲸鱼吧？
Did our cameras miss a life-changing event? Does this stranger seem less threatening than all the others?
像遇到了真爱之类的啊，我改变了。
It is true that our whale, having been born outside the herd, has consistently lacked peer contact his own age.
也可能是遇到知心好友的。
Cannot transmit garden organisms between each other, so the interaction here probably feels less fraught than it might with an adult, who could permanently dose him with life-altering symbiosis.
我靠，这个鲸鱼我都看不到它眼睛在哪儿，这是它正面背面啊。
We hypothesize that juvenile Brillo association is a necessary prior step to adult interaction. Regardless of how correct this assertion is, it successfully buys our study additional time. The two whales spend the rest of the day playing and are still chasing fish together when we leave them. Night falls.
就起码我们开始互动了，不是这么自闭了。
But our whale is not asleep. GPS coordinates show he's swimming somewhere. As his aberrant behavior is still under scrutiny, the team moves to investigate. A spotlight is aimed overboard. We discover more than just our whale. He is traveling with a pod of other youths. They all sing with curiosity at the sudden lights shining.
居然成长了，他和鲸群一起旅行了。
We cut the power
之前那么自闭来着。
It's soon clear where the Brillos are headed. The first glimmers of action appear in the near distance. The night of the lamplighter fish has begun.
灯火鱼之夜。
The ocean starts to flash brilliantly as males battle for the attention of females. The weak are pierced open, spilling bioluminescence into the water.
就是发光发亮，就是为了交配嘛。对的。
Shine with complete
大自然
indifference
都
to
是这样。
predators attacking. Known as predator satiation, there are simply too many to all be eaten.
这也不怕被吃，一定要交配。
His belly full of glowing fish bits, our whale watches the show reach its climax. It seems like he'll be up all night with the others. Confident in his safety, we recall our camera drones to finish their scheduled recharge.
起码这个鲸鱼是没事的，安全的。就像是看烟花了是吧？
By blocking wave activity, the barrier reef creates a wide lagoon behind it. The placid water stretches for several kilometers before being overtaken by a mangrove forest. Parts are so shallow that they become exposed to air at low tide. At high tide, other areas are deep enough for a troublesome young whale to get lost in. His friends weren't adventurous enough to follow him today.
坚持自己。
And for good reason, as our whale realizes once the water level starts to drop again, there's no time to play with the locals. The outgoing seawater feeds to several deep channels. Whisked through the trenches, our whale rides the rip current to safety, with no control over where it's taking him. After a lengthy ride, he is spat out far from where he began. This is the end of the Great Reef. It's exposed and dangerous territory, but our whale can't help himself from having a look around.
坏了，这跑太远了吧？
There's a sudden realization that he's being watched. Something is stirring within the cave behind him. It's another Brillo whale. Our whale approaches, but there is no friendly greeting. This isolated loner is an exile from the herd.
被流放了。
Banishment is reserved for excessive violence against fellow Brillos. Most likely, it was a mating joust that escalated to fatal combat.
我靠，这个巨黄鲸它是长什么样？我怎么看不出来啊？
A deteriorated mental state from years of isolation is what has made him truly dangerous.
我们好像就来到了一个那个怎么说呢？就好像来到一个监狱那种感觉，这边是一个特别危险的犯人。
Our Brillo can understand that a noiseless approach signals an attack. He whistles another greeting. It's met with an oppressive silence.
哇，这个巨黄鲸看起来确实攻击力拉满了。
Staggering strength. But his secret weapon lies inside the crow's nest atop his hardened armor.
这是一个鱼吗？
The Vorpix octopus wakes when it
章鱼。
senses a kill is imminent. He serves the role of a hunting partner who swims in advance. Usually it latches over the eyes of prey and attacks with its serrated beak. But when prey is so pitifully weak, he prefers to spectate.
这我们这个鲸鱼确实是有点弱，没办法，太小了，
Our whale is far from being scared.
并且还被变色了，看。
He's experiencing a whole other emotion. He knows.
啊？
This was unexpected.
他还是
Abandoning caution,
他好
the calf
他好
sings
开
and
心，
plays like he's found a new friend.
他不管那么多，我照样玩。
He goes in for a nuzzle, and the harsh exterior cracks. How long has it been since the old-timer experienced any warmth of companionship?
居然好治愈。
Maybe having a little apprentice killer won't be so bad.
所以最后找到他是吗？
He grunts, struggling to remember a song that isn't also a threat. This isn't the scene of bloodshed that the octopus wanted.
这个章鱼有点意思的，这个章鱼可爱啊！他说：“哎，真拿你没办法。”
It seems he's witnessed this cycle once before, as he knows what must be done.
他曾经见证过这个循环，点一下。
This animal is negligibly senescent, meaning it expresses no evidence
哦，它活了很久。
of aging. It's one of the only long-lived cephalopods that has not been culled. Our researchers suspect this octopus to be at least 4 centuries old, and cephalopods who survive so long possess a devious
那
intelligence.
确实。
The Vorpix presents our whale with a living piece of the
但另一
armor
方面也是
painting.
好事儿，你知道吗？那说明这个工生很强啊。
A quick feel for the soft spot,
又开始共生了，
and the deed is done.
感觉好疼。
When the young whale wakes up, the implant will already have sprouted roots
这
that
么
will
快
firmly fixed in his
就固
skin.
定上了。
With this major milestone now documented, the mobile lab departs
里
and
程
will
碑
not
世
rejoin
界
the whale again
移动实验室将会离
until his
开，
adulthood.
并且不会再回来
Implants will
了，
continue to transmit information about his
直到他
physical
成年为
development
止。
for a 20-year remote observation period.
哦，会一直监测他的数据。
This also ends the documentary team's access to the
哎，我好
whale
想看他
and concludes the first
有
phase
长
of
大
the
了是什么
project.
样子呀？
For us, raw data is far less compelling than first-hand observation of his body being reconstructed. 20 years is a long time for impatient humans to wait. When we do meet our whale again, it is hard to guess now what we might find.
希望到时候还能看他活着，好吧？他能活
All
着就
the
挺好
changes
的。
he experiences over 2 decades will be witnessed in a single moment. It should be nothing short of a complete metamorphosis.
他应该长得就跟他的师傅差不多。
This concludes South Scrimshaw Part 1.
哦，第一部结束了，
Channels
真
open
精
for the
彩
transmission！of Part 2.
这个游戏的内容已经结束了哦。第二部的话，作者好像没有做的。
This concludes South Scrimshaw Part 1. Please keep designated channels open for the transmission.
结束了，也感谢汉化，也感谢汉化。我们很好的就看完了一部这种伪纪录片，被里面的各种景象啊，包括它的世界观有震撼到，我觉得很有趣啊，我很期待啊，很期待第二部。而且不是还有提到说有另一个研究团队嘛，说在研究昆虫不过我感觉研究昆虫的话可能会很恶心。好，这个游戏结束了啊，我觉得我也没有什么好总结的啊，我都是被震撼到的。这个游戏我们整个下来，我不算是在做游戏实况嘛，就算是跟大家一起看了一个这个纪录片啊。那么大家对于这个游戏呢有什么想说的，也可以在视频区评论。我是胡道，咱们下期视频再见，拜拜。